Okay, if you're watching this, it's probably because you're a watch enthusiast or collector who loves watches and probably buys and sells watches from time to time. And in this video, I'm going to tell you about a super duper power tip for when you're selling your watch. Oh my goodness, you're gonna love this. I mean, how do you sell something for a profit increase of 2,799% of its market value? I'll tell you. Okay, my super duper power tip to help you sell a watch is this. Write a compelling sales write-up. Now, whilst you're hopefully selling a watch that someone else will want because it's desirable, it won't harm to remind people about what's cool about your watch. You need to tell them a story around your watch. There's a saying that I love that I'd like you to bear in mind, and it's this. The more you tell, the more you sell. You may need to motivate people a little bit and inspire them to make the purchase. And I'm not talking about pages and pages of boring old waffle. I'm talking about short, punchy, compelling, interesting words here. Yes, you need to include the interesting facts about your watch to help persuade potential buyers to hit the buy button. But if you can, tell an interesting story about your watch to make it appear more desirable to the buyers. And to achieve this, you need to do some research on your watch and, a bit like a reporter, find something, anything you can, to include in your interesting stories around your watch to add to the overall picture of the story. Why should they buy it? What's great about the watch? What is there to love about it? What makes it interesting? And feel free to get personal here too. Tell people why you personally love the watch. What compelled you to buy it in the first place? What physical features do you like about it? Was there a fascinating story behind the watch? Try to get your watch to resonate with the potential buyer through its story. It will help increase the watch's significance. And also, don't be afraid to briefly explain why are you selling it. Personally, I like to know why someone is selling their watch. Because if you feel someone's selling their watch because it's a naff watch, that's of course not going to compel someone else to buy it. Conversely, if you mention that despite you loving the watch and that you'll miss it terribly, you're reluctantly selling it because you need the money or are thinning your watch collection down, or perhaps saving for a grail watch and this watch will contribute towards the cost. Maybe you've just moved house or had a child or getting married and you need the cash. It adds a little bit of a personal touch around the story. You see, us humans, we're not hardwired to understand logic and remember facts for a long time, but we do understand and remember stories. We feel stories. Storytelling is one of the most powerful forms of communication since the dawn of mankind. We're drawn to and connect with stories, and in fact we can put a price tag on the value that a story creates by appealing to potential buyers on an emotional level, and I'll talk more about this in a moment. So if you write the facts about your watch just below an interesting story combining all about the compelling reasons why you love the watch and why they will too, you will set your watch apart from other competing watches, and you will help to appeal to potential buyers on an emotional level, triggering important sales related hormones linked to winning people over. Stories impact directly on the perceived value of things and on the price that people are willing to pay, and will give potential buyers the opportunity to engage their imagination and physically feel reasons to pay more for it. You can actually bosh that buyer right in the feels. You can make your watch more meaningful and memorable and interesting and collectible and desirable and historic by inviting potential buyers into the story. You enable them to participate in the story by resonating with your watch and continuing this story path. Now watch my video on sensation transference and learn more about this. And please, when you're writing your story, no bullshit, only real stories with real facts and real information. If you want your watch to stand out from the competing noise in today's attention-starved world, let's learn from David Ogilvy, the father of advertising, who said, "You cannot bore people into buying your product, you can only interest them into buying it." He also said, "Tell the truth, but make the truth fascinating." Now bosh that like button if you've learnt anything from this, and don't forget to subscribe to feed that hungry YouTube algorithm monster. Thank you. And finally, I want to share a quick story about a fascinating storytelling experiment devised by Rob Walker and Joshua Glenn back in 2009. And I love this story is absolutely brilliant. Rob and Joshua were both journalists, and much of their writing had the common theme around the questions of what gave objects their value. And in their experiment that they called Significant Objects, they demonstrated that the effectiveness of the sales write-up can have on things for sale, and how it can not only increase the value of the object, but it can also be measured. And their brilliantly daring hypothesis was that stories are a driver of emotional value and can transform insignificant objects into significant ones. And so they set out to prove it by buying 100 items of what you and I would most likely refer to as tat, each valued at no more than $1.29 each, which is around £1. And so they had £100 worth of junk, totally unremarkable items, nothing collectible or antique or especially interesting, novelty pens, tin badges, crappy old candles, cheap plastic toys, old paperweights. And later that year they managed to sell these junk store items on eBay for $3,612.51. Now, what could have possibly happened to these objects to drive a 2,799% increase in their market value? I'll tell you. They paired each of the objects with a professional creative writer and asked them to pen a short fictional story about it. And instead of just putting the standard factual description of each object in the sales listing, they included the creative and interesting short story instead. The experiment had set out to prove that stories can impact directly on the perceived value of things and on the price that people are willing to pay, and as you saw from the result, it succeeded. The experiment showed the emotional value that comes from attaching a story to an everyday object that is so strong that it can be measured in terms of objective, actual value. In other words, you can put a price tag on the value that a story creates by appealing to potential buyers on an emotional level. So the lesson we can all learn from this is that when selling a watch, invite potential buyers to become part of the watch's story. That's it. Thanks for watching to the end. Do you have any tips that you can add? Please leave them in the comments if you do. Don't forget to check out my website for what watches I have for sale. Download the free guide that's there. Please get in touch if you have any luxury watches for sale. That's it. Cheers and see you on the next one.